let's turn our attention over to Microsoft and OpenAI. I mean, the latest ChatGPT model, GPT-5, is out. I'm not sure it's going exactly as planned, but some of our thoughts. What does this mean?
Yeah, I mean, this new model is supposed to be very impressive. We've got that latest model out. It's been 2 years since we saw that GPT-4 model released back in March of 2023. It's available to everyone, which I think is certainly something that could help it pick up speed, including the free version. But the company's claims that it's like interacting, more kind of a more human interaction. They've also focused on the safety side of it, which has been something that's been brought up a lot. They expect about 700 million weekly active users on ChatGPT this week. They've got a few different versions, but earlier in the week, we know they also released some of their open weight language models. I think if we look at what OpenAI has done since 2015, and then eventually since they released the ChatGPT version in 2022. The models have continued to gain speed. Now we're seeing Microsoft, which of course has backed them, integrate that into their 365 Copilot, their consumer Copilot, and their Azure Foundry, which gives it even more credibility and potentially is a big boost for Microsoft.
I mean, when I think about Microsoft, this is the next wave. I mean, we know Sam Altman has been out speaking today. What am I leaving out about the offerings and why this is so important?
Well, if you think about what the company's been able to do, I mean, it was largely looked at as this is an interesting tool. It's something where, it's almost fun to play with. It's now getting to a point where it's affecting other companies. I mean, if you look at what we saw with Duolingo, pretty impressive results. Then we saw this GPT-5 come out and basically, be able to show that they can produce a very similar application very quickly. And that's what investors, and consumers are seeing, is that this is no longer just a neat tool. It's something that the API, the developers can use these different models, can use these GPT models to essentially, boost their company's capabilities, whether that's efficiency or whatever it might be. And there's a lot of competitiveness out there in the market, and part of that is with code writing and other areas. And GPT is certainly starting to lead that category even more.
And we're going to say thank you there. Right now it's at 522. We want to look at this stock too and do some trading on it. Jeff Pierce, thank you so much. Great news there. Taking a look at some hot topics and also Microsoft. And Charles Moon is with us, stock strategist at Prosper Trading Academy, and looking and having an example trade for Microsoft. Some of your thoughts?
Yeah, so Microsoft has been pretty much on this God tier rally since two earnings reports after they jumped above the 200-day. They've pretty much only gone up. They've been riding these short-term moving averages, which is really important. And that's where they've kind of retraced back. There's a little bit of a gap here from their last earnings where they jumped up. They've been slowly pulling back. It ties in with the 21 EMA, 20 SMA level. So I'm actually looking at a vertical call spread for the August 22nd contract. We're going to be long the 525 strike, short the 535. I'd like to get it at around $3 or less. Now, if we do get it at that price, I would like to risk about $1.20. So that would put the stop at about $1.80 for that contract. The reason being is that if they lose this key level, it's more likely to continue to roll and probably work its way towards $500. So ultimately, I'm expecting short-term demand to pick up. I think that the return could be as high as around 75% on that retracement right back to around 535. It certainly could press higher and push towards that 555 price range that was established as the all-time high. But, we don't want to be too greedy in this market environment. Again, with Apple waking up and Apple starting to take over the market dominance from NVIDIA, with the markets shifting and moving with Apple, I just feel that Apple's breakout alone could also help Microsoft lift right back up to its price point where it was just a week ago.
And so at this point now, thank you for that example trade. Look, people love the Mag 7 and they always want to see the trades. How do you feel about the Mag 7 names? I mean, which ones are your favorite?
Oh, right now it's Apple. Apple is the one that has to play catch up, so to speak. They were the only Mag 7 name up until today that was below their 200-day simple moving average on the daily chart. So, I feel that there's a lot of concerns that were alleviated, especially around tariffs. Apple obviously now moving production or some of their production back to the United States. Powering up with Corning, and this was a really big deal. You could see the inflow just really spike, the demand really spike in this name. Apple's interest and price performance is greater than it's been over the last few months. So, for me, I think Apple has projection near term to 225, but I think ultimately by the end of the year, they're going to be pressing above 235 and possibly pushing on their 52-week highs. So that's the one that I really like to play catch up. And I also like Amazon here in the near term. I think Amazon's going to play a little bit of recovery, trying to gain back what they lost from earnings. And more importantly, again, with Apple's dominance, I think that's just going to help lift the Mag 7s. Names like Amazon, Google have to play catch up with their counterparts like Microsoft and NVIDIA.
And so are you feeling overall that we're going to be hitting new highs in this back half of the year?
Oh yeah, it's again, the only thing that I feel is going to really collapse this market is two things. Number one, if tensions with Russia really get out of control, we saw how violently the market reacted to the downside when Trump announced that there's two nuclear subs outside of Russia, and obviously that conflict's never great for the markets. Number two, any trade deal with China unraveling. At this point, it doesn't look like that's going to ever be the case here. Both sides really need each other. They understand that it's going to be a good working relationship. I think that if the Fed goes ahead and cuts rates in September, which is widely projected at this point based on the CME Fed Watch, that really still exposes the idea to the markets that the possibility of three is in the picture. And while that is very unlikely, the market's price on possibilities. If they're going to start pricing in that third rate cut, we're just going to start boosting up going into the last portion of the year. Now, we have to see how earnings season plays out with the new tariffs in effect, but this earnings season so far has been a pretty good positive. And ultimately, again, if the Fed actions are to be rate cuts, are to be towards rate cuts, and then, of course, we don't have any conflict and that trade deal with China does go through, the markets are going to be in a good place setting up for 2026.
Yeah, understood. Charles Moon, anything you wanted to add in your trading? We're seeing all this volatility always, but we're not that far off highs. Any final quick thought on how you go about your trades?
For me, I don't want to overthink it. I don't think this is the greatest time to invest in a lot of different names. I do think Apple is the most interesting name here, and I think that this breakout today above the 200-day moving average could help the markets. We haven't seen the Apple dominance in terms of market cap influence. We've seen NVIDIA be that dominating figure, and if Apple could pry that away from NVIDIA and Apple starts really pushing towards that upside on this, obviously on this news that they're going to have lesser concern of tariffs directly from obviously the United States, but more importantly, the news out of Taipei was also a big positive as well. I just feel that this market's just going to slowly drift up along with Apple here. So that's going to be the most important thing. That's my leading indicator, quite honestly, in the near term. Obviously, we have economic data coming in that could severely affect the markets, but for now, all eyes on Apple for me.
All right, Charles Moon. So glad to speak with you all the time. Thank you, Charles. Stock strategist, Prosper Trading Academy.